What would you do if the law told you one thing, but your heart whispered another? I asked myself this question many times, but the night it became real changed my life forever. I am not a young woman anymore, but I can still remember every detail. Some memories fade with time, but others remain sharp, like cold glass pressing against your skin. That night was one of them. It was the night I refused to make an arrest, and it has followed me all these years. When I was younger, I was a detective. It was not a glamorous life. I worked long hours, my clothes often smelled of old coffee, and I rarely slept through the night without a call pulling me back to the streets. But I loved my work. I believed in rules, in justice, and in protecting people. Every case I solved gave me pride. Every criminal I caught felt like one less shadow in the city. Before I continue, I would love to know, what do you think about justice? Do you believe rules should be followed at any cost, or do you think sometimes the heart should decide? Share your thoughts in the comments. The night it all began was cold and heavy with rain. I was sitting in an unmarked car with my partner, waiting outside a warehouse on the edge of town. The building looked abandoned, but we had information that someone was inside. The target was a thief who had been moving from city to city, stealing not money, but secrets. He broke into offices and banks, but never touched cash. Instead, he took documents, files, information. Nobody knew why. The police called him a criminal, but others whispered that he was exposing corruption. I did not know the truth. All I knew was that it was my job to catch him. Hours passed, and the rain tapped harder on the windshield. My partner grew restless and turned on the radio softly, but I kept my eyes on the dark building. At last, a shadow moved. A man slipped out of a side door, fast and silent, carrying a small bag. He was taller than I expected, his shoulders narrow, his movements quick. He wore no mask, and in the light from the street lamp I saw a face that was younger than I imagined. His eyes were sharp, but not afraid. My partner reached for the radio to call backup, but something inside me told me to move now. I opened the door, and my boots splashed in the puddles as I ran after him. The night air was bitter, and my breath turned white. The man glanced back, saw me, and instead of panic, a small smile crossed his face. It was not the smile of a criminal caught in the act. It was something else, calm, knowing, almost as if he had expected me. He ran, and I followed, through narrow streets, across empty yards, over fences slick with rain. He moved like he knew every corner, every escape path, while I pushed myself harder, lungs burning, heart pounding. I had chased many suspects before, but this one felt different. He was not only running, he was testing me. Each time I came close, he slowed slightly, as if inviting me to keep going. Finally, he turned into a narrow alley. The walls were high, and at the end there was nowhere left to run. My hand went to my holster, and I pointed my gun. "Stop," I ordered. My voice was firm, but my hands felt cold. He raised his hands slowly, and the bag dropped to the wet ground. The rain ran down his face, but his eyes stayed locked on mine. There was no fear, only curiosity. For a long moment, we stood in silence. I should have called it in. I should have handcuffed him, read his rights, and taken him back to the station. That was the law. That was what I had sworn to do. But something in his gaze unsettled me. It was not the look of a greedy thief or a violent man. It was the look of someone who believed he had a reason. "You are not going to do it," he said quietly. His voice was calm, almost gentle. My fingers tightened on the gun. I had heard every excuse before. I was desperate. I needed money. It was not me, but he was not making excuses. He was stating a fact, as if he already knew my choice before I made it. His confidence angered me, but it also shook me. "Turn around," I said again, forcing my voice to stay steady. He tilted his head slightly, watching me. "Do you even know what is in that bag?" he asked. I did not answer. My job was not to ask why. My job was to arrest. But then the bag shifted in the rain, and a folder slid out. Papers spilled across the wet ground. I saw stamps and names, big names, officials I knew, men with power, companies with secrets. My eyes darted to him, and he saw the flicker of doubt on my face. "They take from the poor," he said softly. "They hide their crimes in files and reports. I take those reports and show the world." His words hit me harder than I wanted to admit. For years, I had walked into offices where victims begged for help, while powerful men left untouched. Was he telling the truth, or was it another lie to weaken me? My partner's voice crackled on the radio at my shoulder. "Do you have him? Do you need backup?" I froze. The moment stretched long and heavy. The man watched me, his eyes steady, rain dripping from his hair. "You do not want to do this," he said again. My chest tightened. I wanted to say he was wrong, that I was only a detective and I followed the law. But deep inside, I felt the crack of doubt. I had caught many criminals, but none of them looked at me like this. None of them made me question who I was. I lowered the gun, only slightly, but enough for him to notice. His lips curved into the smallest smile, one of victory but also of understanding. He bent, gathered the papers, and slipped them back into the bag. He did not run. He did not fight. He only looked at me one last time, as if waiting for me to change my mind. I should have shouted. I should have called my partner. I should have pressed the radio and ended it. But I did not. I stood there as he walked past me, quiet as the rain, and disappeared into the night. When my partner arrived a minute later, out of breath, I told him the man had escaped. It was a lie, and my chest ached as I said it. He cursed and hit the wall in frustration, but I could not speak again. My voice felt locked away. Back at the station, I could not focus. The face of the man stayed in my mind. The calm voice, the steady eyes, the strange smile when he knew I would not stop him. I told myself it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. But deep down, I knew it was not. It was a choice that would change me. I sat at my desk staring at blank reports, but the rain of that night still echoed in my ears. I had been a detective who followed rules without question, but now, for the first time, I was not sure what was right and what was wrong. And that was the night the arrest I refused became the case that haunted me. The next morning, I woke up with the weight of the night still pressing on me. The sound of the rain was gone, but I still felt its cold touch in my bones. I had not slept much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, his calm smile, the way his eyes stayed on me, even when I pointed my gun, the quiet confidence when he said I would not do it. He was right. I had not done it, and now I was not sure who I was anymore. I dressed slowly and went to the station. The office was busy, as it always was in the mornings. Phones rang, typewriters clacked, people rushed with papers and files. I tried to look normal, to act like every other day, but inside I was shaking. My partner slammed his hand on a desk and cursed again. He was still angry that the suspect had escaped. "We were so close," he said. "I nearly had him. If only I had been faster." I nodded but said nothing. I could not tell him the truth. If I did, everything I had worked for would be gone. I sat down at my own desk, and a folder waited for me. Inside was the report on the man we had chased. His name was listed, along with photographs and details of his past. His real name was Daniel Rocha. He was 31 years old, born in a small town not far from the city. He had no history of violence. He had studied computer systems and worked for a large company before leaving suddenly. After that, he had no stable job, but the police believed he had broken into at least 6 offices and stolen documents. He was wanted in 3 districts. The photographs made my heart beat faster. His face looked calm even in black and white. The sharp lines of his cheekbones, the steady eyes, the hair that looked messy as if he never cared much for style. In one picture, he was younger, almost smiling at the camera. He looked more like a student than a criminal. I shut the folder quickly, but his face stayed in my mind. For the rest of the week, I tried to lose myself in other cases. Burglaries, car theft, missing persons, the usual work. But no matter what I did, my thoughts returned to Daniel Rocha. At night, I heard his voice in the silence. "You are not going to do it." It felt like a whisper I could not escape. One evening, after a long shift, I walked home alone. The streets were quiet, and the lamps shone in small golden circles on the wet pavement. My bag felt heavy, but my steps slowed when I reached a small cafe on the corner. Through the window I saw him, Daniel Rocha, sitting at a table, drinking coffee as if he had no reason to hide. My breath caught in my throat. I froze outside. My hand went to my radio, but I did not press the button. Instead, I stood there, hidden in the shadows, watching him. He looked normal, almost peaceful. His shoulders were relaxed, his fingers wrapped around the cup. He did not look like a man hunted by police. He looked like someone who belonged in the world, like any other person. Then, as if he felt my presence, he lifted his head. His eyes found mine through the glass. My chest tightened. He did not move in shock or fear. He only looked at me and gave that same calm smile I remembered. For a moment, I felt my legs turn weak. Then slowly, I pushed open the door. The bell above it rang, and heads turned. But his eyes never left me. I walked across the cafe and sat opposite him. The warmth of the place made my skin prickle after the cold street outside. I placed my hands on the table, trying to keep them steady. "Why did you let me go?" he asked softly. His voice was not mocking. It was curious, almost gentle. I stared at him. "You were right," I said finally. "I do not know why, but I could not do it." He leaned back, his eyes still fixed on mine. "Because you think," he said, "most people in your position follow orders. They do not stop to ask why. But you hesitated. You wanted to know." His words made me uneasy. I did not want him to see me so clearly. "You are a criminal," I said. "That is all I need to know." He tilted his head. "Then why are you here? Why are you sitting with me instead of calling your team?" I opened my mouth, but no answer came. I wanted to say I was here to arrest him now. But we both knew that was not true. I was here because I wanted to understand him. I was here because something about him refused to leave me. The waiter came with another cup and placed it in front of me. I had not ordered it, but Daniel had. The steam rose in the soft light. I wrapped my hands around it, but I did not drink. "What is in the bag?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "The truth. Papers they want to keep hidden. Deals, lies, theft that is bigger than any of us. They build their empires on silence. I break that silence." His voice was steady, but my heart beat hard. I had heard such stories before. People claimed they were fighting for justice, but often it was only an excuse. Still, something in his tone was different. He believed his own words. "Stealing is still a crime," I said firmly. "Perhaps," he answered, "but protecting those who rob the poor is worse. Tell me, detective, how many times have you been told to look away? How many cases were closed too fast because the wrong people were involved?" I looked down. His words cut deep. He was not wrong. I had seen files disappear, names erased, victims silenced, but I had accepted it as the way of the world. The law was not perfect, but it was what I had. Yet sitting here, I felt that line blur. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the hum of the cafe. Outside, cars passed, and people hurried through the cold night. But inside, it felt as if time had slowed. At last, he stood. He placed money on the table for both cups. "You will have to choose," he said. He said. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with something stronger. "You can arrest me, or you can let me go. But you cannot do both forever." My breath caught. I wanted to stand, to reach for my cuffs, to finish what I should have done days ago, but I did not move. My body betrayed me, heavy and unwilling. I only watched as he walked out the door into the dark street. When the door closed, I stared at the empty chair. My hands still held the warm cup, but my heart was cold. Days passed again, but my mind was restless. I tried to bury myself in other cases, but nothing helped. Daniel Rocha had become the case I could not close, not because I could not find him, but because I did not want to. One night, as I walked home late, I saw him again. He stood at the edge of a street, half hidden in shadows. My pulse quickened. This time, I spoke first. "You should not be here," I said firmly. He stepped forward, and the light caught his face. "And yet I am," he replied softly, "because I know you will not call them." His words were both true and dangerous. I felt trapped between duty and something deeper. "Why are you following me?" I asked. "I am not," he said, "but you are following me, even when you do not move. You want to understand, and you will not rest until you do." I shook my head. "You are wrong." He smiled again, that calm, steady smile. "We will see." Then he turned and walked into the night, leaving me once more with questions that burned like fire in my chest. I stood there long after he was gone, the city around me loud with cars and voices, yet I felt alone. I was a detective, sworn to the law, but my heart was no longer sure where justice lay. And I knew, deep inside, that this was only the beginning. The weeks that followed were heavy with silence. I worked my shifts, wrote my reports, followed orders as if nothing had changed. But inside I was different. Every day I searched for his face in the crowd. Every night I waited for him to return. I told myself I only wanted to catch him, to finish what I had failed to do. But the truth was sharper than that. I wanted answers. I wanted to know why he had chosen me, why he believed I would let him go, and why I could not stop thinking about him. At the station, whispers spread. My partner complained that the suspect was still at large. The chief asked questions about our first chase. I kept my answers short. Too much detail, and they would see the cracks in my story. Too little, and they would not trust me. I walked a thin line, every word chosen with care. Still, I felt eyes on me. They suspected nothing yet, but I knew suspicion could grow like fire in dry grass. One evening, as I walked home, I found a small envelope pushed under my door. My heart jumped as I picked it up. There was no name, but I knew at once it was from him. Inside was a single piece of paper with an address written in neat letters. Nothing else. No explanation. Only a place. My hand shook as I held it. It was not far, a part of the city I knew well. I should have thrown it away. I should have called my partner and reported it. But instead, I put on my coat and walked into the night. The address led me to an old library that had been closed for years. Its windows were dusty, its door locked. But as I stood there, the door opened quietly, and Daniel Rocha stepped out. "You came," he said softly. I did not answer. My throat was tight. "Come inside," he added. Against every rule I had ever followed, I walked in. The air inside was thick with dust, but lamps lit the main room. On a long table lay stacks of papers, folders, and photographs. I froze. The names and faces I saw were not small criminals or petty thieves. They were powerful men, respected leaders, men whose pictures hung in government offices. "This is why I steal," Daniel said. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned. "These are their secrets. This is the truth they hide, and if I am silent, they will never be stopped." I stepped closer and read a few pages. My stomach twisted. Contracts, payments, bribes. Everything he had said was true. For a moment, the world shifted under me. I had always believed in the law, but here was proof that the law protected the wrong people. "Why show me this?" I asked. "Because you already know," he replied. "You felt it when you looked at me. You saw it in the papers on the ground that night. You are not like the others. You still think. You still question." I shook my head, but he stepped closer. "You have a choice," he said. "You can turn me in, and they will lock me away. Or you can walk out of here knowing what you know, and pretend it does not matter. But if you do that, you will never forget, and you will never forgive yourself." My chest tightened. I wanted to say he was wrong, that I was stronger than this, that I could let it go, but I knew he was right. The truth was already inside me, and it was burning. We stood there in silence, the weight of the choice pressing down on me. Finally, I whispered, "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," he said. "Only that you decide who you really are." I left the library with my heart heavy. I could not arrest him, not now, but I could not join him either. I walked the empty streets until dawn, torn between the life I had always known and the truth that would never leave me. Days passed, and the pressure grew. My partner noticed my distraction. The chief asked again about my reports. I felt trapped, caught between two worlds. Then one night, as I finished my shift, Daniel found me again. He waited outside, standing in the shadows. "You cannot keep living like this," he said. His voice was gentle, but his eyes were hard. "You are drowning between duty and truth. Sooner or later, you must choose." My hands shook. "And if I choose wrong?" I asked. "Then you live with it," he said simply. "Like I do." His words cut deep. He turned and began to walk away, but I followed. We walked together through quiet streets until we reached the river. The water was dark, moving fast under the bridge. Daniel stopped and looked at me. "I will leave soon," he said. "There are other places that need me. But before I go, you must answer one question." My heart pounded. If you had to choose between what is right and what feels right, which would you choose? The night was silent except for the rush of water below. My mind spun. I thought of the badge I carried, the oath I had taken, the faces of victims who trusted me. And then I thought of the papers on the table, the corruption hidden in plain sight, the truth no one else would show me. "I do not know," I whispered. Daniel looked at me for a long time. Then he nodded. "That is an answer too," he said. He turned to leave, and I felt a wave of panic. "Wait!" I called. He stopped. I took a step forward, my voice breaking. "If I let you go again, I cannot come back. Do you understand?" He gave a small smile. "I understand." And with that, he walked into the darkness. I stood there until he was gone, the river roaring beneath me, the night pressing close. I returned home, but I was not the same. At the station, I went through the motions, but my heart was elsewhere. I had refused the arrest not once, but twice. I had let a criminal walk free, though he believed he was fighting for justice. I did not know if I had betrayed my oath or honored something deeper. Years have passed since then, but the memory remains. The case was never closed. Daniel Rocha disappeared, and the files were locked away where no one could touch them. But for me, the truth was not locked away. It lives inside me, heavy and sharp. Sometimes, when I walk the streets at night, I wonder if he was right. I wonder if I failed as a detective or grew as a human being. I will never know for certain. But I do know this: the arrest I refused was the moment that changed me forever. And even now, when I close my eyes, I see his smile in the rain and hear his voice asking me the question I could never answer. If this story touched you, tell me, what would you have done in my place? Do not forget to subscribe for more emotional stories.